Do you have an iPhone charger in this establishment?
There was
More
one
important
here.
than the playoff.
Brit, is this your charger?
It's not mine.
Oh no, that's essentially my charger.
Okay.
I use it
It's
every
been
time.
here.
That is
great.
the iPhone charger.
I just know it's always been a struggle because this is not an iPhone household.
Right.
Yeah, I'm surprised
I've always
how
had
stable
and
that is.
iPhone.
I had to get one when I started dating.
So what I'm saying is like, you should just get one as a single man. And I was like, you know what, you're right. Well, it's episode 271 of View from 202. The four of us, Brit, Cork, Sam, and Peaches, here reviewing 2 games and 4 points, an away win at Cincinnati and a draw at home, undermanned.
3 games.
3.
Yeah, I think Barca Ehrenreich also had
Oh,
a
yeah.
victory.
That's true.
That we're all now on the same team of.
That's true. Sam made his debut.
It's been a whole year. I'm back on the field, and Serge and Goma is still injured.
That's right. Thank you. You know, I'm just saying, if you put down all of the chronology, take all your pins and all your yarn and put them there. Saturday night, Red Bulls take the pitch, hold up Serge Goma's jersey, rumors of a lower body injury to him. Sunday, 4 o'clock, none other than Sam Place walks out on the field. Lower body injury, no longer there. All of the tendons there, repaired.
How does it feel to have Serge Goma's Achilles tendon now?
Well, you saw my performance in the field.
You were durable. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
durable.
Yeah.
Not a lot of results, but some potential.
Yeah.
I'm
So I think
tired of...
I'd say it's, still maintaining the course.
Yeah. I'm tired of hearing and seeing the same article over and over again by that tech weirdo who's like having his midlife crisis. They need to cover the transplant surgery that's happening for Serge and Goma. It's like that movie. I couldn't even guess when that came out. Remember that movie The Island with
with
was it
Ewan
Ewan
McGregor?
McGregor?
That's the Michael Bay one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie
Classic.
rules.
That's what's happening here.
Was it Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah, that was when she was on her.
so
That was
sick.
when she was on her come up.
And then Steve Buscemi's in it for like 5 minutes. And I remember because there's like one scene where he has a really blunt, heavy-handed line of dialogue that's like, God's not real. And people would post like a screenshot of that scene with that quote on it and like credit it to Steve Buscemi, being like, yeah, do you ever think about that, kid? God isn't real. Incredible movie. Also, foretelling of the times we live in, where Sam is taking the spare ligaments of Red Bull's 2 players. And I think we should continue it. That's another thing. Do you see the posts making the rounds are all apparently alleged Zoomers are looking at the lyrics to Californication and saying, wow, it all came true? That's a hidden verse of Californication as well.
That's funny. I first saw that movie in my high school biology class.
The Island?
Yeah.
What, did they run out of VHSs of Gattaca?
Yeah, they didn't have the Abyss.
We
on
did
hand.
watch Gattaca. We also saw Avatar.
If only, yeah.
Avatar was kind of during our ecological segment.
Wait, you saw Avatar in school?
Yeah.
Avatar came out when we were in high school? Or early?
Avatar came out like the year I graduated
We were
high
like
school,
juniors.
so like
or I was a
Okay.
junior.
a few
when
years, couple
Avatar
years
had
before
come
y'all.
out.
Yeah.
Do you guys watch it over like 6 different classes?
Yeah, something like that. Oh, it was like in our AP class. So after the test, it was kind of like, oh, this is what
I
we're
see.
doing. You know.
Yeah. Wow. If we just not mentioned any of the movie titles and we just described the plots, any of the Zoomers listening to this would be like, wow, these are really good ideas. But yeah.
And then he was dead the whole time.
But then a lot has happened since the last time we recorded, both with soccer and non-soccer things. We're actually recording on the same day as the Trump trial. Jury selection is ongoing. Some really, really interesting stuff where people, I guess today, they spent much of the day reading out tweets that were retweeted by potential juror members. So Trump was just sitting there listening to this, but then they were posting the profiles and information of selected jurors, which people were joking was like a median voter generator, because people had all sorts of incoherent combinations of things. But you guys see this? Imagine I'm shuffling some papers. I have some papers to shuffle on a desk here. This the juror number 6 is an odd bloke that caught my attention. Thank you for the Foley. Odd bloke caught my attention. Squat man, but the court reporter said that he seemed to be wearing platform shoes. But an odd man who said he was in between jobs currently, and that thought that he would be able to view Trump with an open-ended disposition. He wouldn't rush to conclusion because he thought that Trump's surrounding cast or of characters and staff were very young and inexperienced, so thought that maybe it was just a genuine mistake that he was making, but said that he had a lot of time and looked forward to spending this next couple of months viewing the Trump thing, and thought it might be an interesting sexy learnings moment for him. Interesting. I thought all sorts of odd characters that pop up in Manhattan criminal courts.
And of course,
these days.
that man's name, James Truvino.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward for them to read into the record all of James Truvino's tweets and retweets. There might even be a Ben Cork retweet in there, a quote tweet that makes it.
The next Jay Leno character, the dancing Strubinos.
It's going to be I'm looking forward to when they announce that they deposed him as the lead juror, right at the decision moment. Because, couldn't bring them together to make. He's ultimately removed
from the jury for during lunch break drinking water in a uncomfortable way.
All the other jurors uncomfortable.
It's just like 12 angry men, but the entire time he's just squeezing a bottle into his mouth.
Frequently delaying deliberation proceedings so he could go change outfits.
Yeah. So, best of luck to the jury. Even though they're a young and inexperienced squad, maybe they'll be able to deliberate and get a result and have a good learnings moment here.
Well, as long as they go back to the basics,
Yeah. So we got a big menu of other potential patter if you want to knock it out. We got earthquake patter that we haven't talked about. We've got eclipse patter.
Yep.
Boy, did you guys feel that earthquake? It was, nope, that was actually the weight of Gerhard Struber's career falling off the shelf. Anything else?
OJ.
Oh, right, yeah.
What else can you say? Meta charity do? No. Yeah, I feel like that might be the big 3 there.
Yeah.
Besides,
you both saw the eclipse.
Yeah, I was hoping to make a recurring bit that Sam and I have like a deeper enlightened truth because we both saw the eclipse and you guys didn't. But it turns out
I think we
went to our respective home roots.
Funny.
That's true. Yeah,
and very disappointing experience in San Antonio.
Yeah. Did not deliver. The clouds covered it. I saw it naked with my own eyes.
Wow. You took off the glasses.
Yeah.
You saw
I've
the
seen
corona.
enough.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Did you see into any kind of spiritual RBNY findings?
Oh yeah, I met the Red Bull.
Yeah, it was
the
like
Red
that.
Bull. Yeah, the Red Bull was there, and we'll reveal what needs to be done. Well, maybe we'll finally write a sequel to the Chris Armas Wicker Man episode. Now that we've had this revelation,
So everyone, presumably in totality, is now like spiritually connected to you and the Red Bull.
we're all connected to the Red Bull. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like the Trinity. 4 points, 2 matches.
Not quite how we'd expect it.
Yeah, I feel like we were relatively cautiously optimistic last time we recorded. But this is pretty good. I don't think if you asked us to guess where the points came from in these 2 matches, we almost assuredly would have guessed we had 3 from Chicago at home and 1 away to Cincinnati. All these central time zone C teams. It's getting to be a little bit much. But no, we won away at Cincinnati. Let's discuss that first. 2-1. Arguably the win of the season, I'd have to say, of this young season. A bit of a statement going in. And not only did Cincinnati win the Shield last year, but at the time of kickoff, Cincinnati was top of the table themselves. By winning, we dethroned them. For the moment, even though we drew. That's no longer the case at the time of recording, but we did dethrone them. What's your takeaway on this win? Is it time to start believing in this project, or is there a more guarded takeaway to take away here?
I suppose the way you set it up there, kind of, a little bit of a light bulb went off in my head just now about as far as if you would have, picked ahead of time from these two games, which one they would have taken points from. Yeah, you would have picked Chicago to be the game, Chicago at home to be the game they win, and then Cincinnati on the road to be the one that they get the draw or maybe even a loss in. But I think the reverse of that ending up happening is somewhat in line with this club's history, recent history, as far as, both just the happenstance of how often this team, gets, weirdly good road results, and then has some issues at home. And also just the actual dynamics of play, where the pressing style and the kind of emphasis on it that's been had in the last few years, especially, kind of suits playing against bigger teams that take more chances, teams at home that take more chances, than it does against teams that are, not really committing that much and not really drawing themselves out that much. Obviously the most pronounced, kind of manifestation of that was the early part of the 2022 season when, the team kind of infamously won their first, 7-8 games on the road, but then couldn't get a result at home to save their life. And then just, kind of historically, this team is always kind of, even going all the way to something like the U19s beating Chelsea that one time with the Tyler Adams goal, the kind of, punch the other team in the mouth, high press style is one that often catches big teams by surprise and hits big teams as hard as it does kind of smaller teams. So I guess that is an interesting way to look at how this team is shaping up so far and how some of the results are shaping up and what to maybe kind of compare and contrast with past versions of Red Bull's teams with the way this one is shaping up so far.
Yeah, and it's interesting thinking about these two specific teams as well. Chicago, as we'll get to, has been weirdly a bit of a bogeyman or a bogey at home for the Red Bulls in recent years. It feels almost in line with recent results that we had something weird or something that throws the game off kilter like we had with the red card. Cincinnati, though, the intro to the game we just rewatched as part of the All Access videos had Steve Cangelosi going on about what a sort of rivalry or specifically just like a type of rivalry where two teams are playing each other a lot. It's not like geographic or historic even. And it got us thinking, what exactly is the deal with Cincinnati here? Because I know in previous episodes, I've also gone on a whole thing about why do we have such agita with Matt Miazga? Why is this thing with Cincinnati being such a big deal? We losing to them in the playoffs last year when they were the first seed and we were like barely in the playoffs is not exactly fertile ground for a huge rivalry or doesn't leave us much room to talk smack. But yet, watching these games, it is undeniable that there seems to be real bad blood between these players a little bit, and certainly the fans and Frankie Amaya. I will say it still doesn't make sense for me to say Metro reject about Miazga, but boy, Matt Miazga is really committed to being a heel in this matchup, hasn't he? Like he certainly is not casting himself as a fan favorite here.
Certainly nothing left to lose after last year.
Yeah,
Right.
I suppose it kind of reminds me of like that 2017 series of Toronto, and Toronto was sort of a hated rival for a few years after that, with Bradley and Josie being particular objects of scorn too. I guess at a certain point, it doesn't matter if the background has a strong footing. It seems like there is just bad blood in the water now. But Frankie certainly had something to say about his reception there, and he scored quite a nice goal and had really a pretty stellar performance in response to a lot of the booing he was getting. But yeah, I don't know. What do you make of this dynamic we have with Cincinnati so far?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring that and also, I guess, kind of circle back to the original question of like me thinking that this is just on paper. I think you can't really argue that it's not a good result against Cincinnati, given their presumed strength in general. Our going into this, our buildup of roster issues, kind of through injury or what have you, and just kind of, I think the way that we imposed ourselves onto the game. I mean, I think it was just kind of funny, and if I was a player, maybe like using that kind of petty energy would like fuel me a little bit. Maybe this team is good for that, to kind of be that anti-hero, or like that villain, being protagonistic through being an antagonist, I guess. Which is, I guess, maybe like Matt Miazga's entire shtick now. But yeah, I mean, I find like the whole relationship to Cincinnati really funny. It's like kind of maybe they're the the Philadelphia Union little bro now a little bit, of like, okay, guys, like you're bringing a lot more energy into this than you need to be, or like we have other things to worry about. But like in the moment, it's like, okay, no, it's funny. Shut up.
Well, there's just
shut up, Metro. Go make some drums.
Well, just to touch on the little brother kind of framing, though, I think I don't think Red Bulls, at least not after a month and a half of good form. I don't know if they're necessarily in a position yet to say anybody's like a little brother rival yet. And I think in an even broader sense, as far as a burgeoning rivalry with Cincinnati, I think, kind of like Brit laid out, where it's, and like Angelosi said, where it's not really a geographic one. It's just one where, a lot of big games have happened between the two. But I think for it to eventually reach something on the magnitude of what it was with, Red Bulls in Atlanta 5-6 years ago, kind of, similar analogy of that kind of big game rival, big conference rival. I think Red Bulls need to do a bit more proving over the course of this season to have something like that really hit a flashpoint.
I think there's something about the media, though, that won't like really cause that buildup to happen. I think there's something about how the media covered Atlanta that really gave us, or our fan base, a sting that season, where I don't think anyone really cares about Cincinnati, In the
same way, I could maybe see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Cincinnati sort of spans two eras where, Cincinnati's first interaction really with us was in 2017, when we were still in sort of the good old days, even though 2017 was a weird season, when we beat them in the U.S. Open Cup with that dramatic comeback. And then most of our real direct exposure to them is once the team has been in the struggle era, between Armas and Struber. And from our perspective, we had so much more going on. I mean, this is sort of true with Philadelphia, as we've talked about before. It's like, all of these annoying, ugly games that we're getting into, like, this is like a bad period for our club, but it's like sort of the height of Philadelphia and Cincinnati's existence. And Cincinnati, I guess, doesn't really have anyone else. I mean, I guess they're pretty close to Columbus, but like, I don't know, they're still so young. And it just also, makes me realize that compared to our other rivalries, the Atlanta one, pretty dead now. DC, as we've commented on, pretty dead. I'd say thoroughly dead, to be honest. And the Toronto one, that was really just a flash in the pan. And even the city rivalry derby feels like it's lost a lot of juice. There's sort of just a vacuum there in general. So maybe that's one reason why the players at least seem to get into it. But yeah, funny situation. I mean, I enjoy that Frankie, was able to strike back at them though a little bit and kind of shut up the crowd. That's always fun. Also in this game, we got a little bit of more, I think, tactical. I got a little bit more tactical clarity, at least for a couple players, and seeing how they might fit. And particularly for the midfield, we saw Peter Stroud in both of these last two games play more centrally. While Daniel Edelman was out. Daniel Edelman did come in later as a substitute, and we saw Wiki Carmona play out wide. Emil Forsberg returned and did start this game and played most of it. But I thought that Stroud in both of these games looked much more natural as a central midfielder, and I think we're beginning to get a glimpse of the actual player that Wiki Carmona is. What did you think of their performances or the midfield in general?
I thought Stroud was great. I mean, I think they kind of went along the lines of what we were saying, or I know I'd mentioned it. I think so. A couple of you guys did as well. Just that, he was playing well when Edelman was out, and no reason to swap them out just yet. So I'm glad that Schwartz thought the same way, and we got to see more minutes from him in both the games that we watched. It's just unfortunate to even bring him up because of how bad it looked, him coming off the field in Chicago. But he has been playing that role really well, and I think we've commented on his ability to slow down the game and take a foul. He's really good at that, but also just looks a lot more natural when he plays centrally. But I was pleased with him in honestly both these games.
Unfortunately, a little too good at drawing fouls. Maybe we'll discover the next game. Right. But I agree. I think maybe this makes sense now if I look in the broad scheme of Wiki Carmona's career. If when we were first playing, the idea of a 4-2-2-2 whatever was a little bit more in the works at this club, and him kind of maybe fitting that upper bank of midfielders where he isn't either a wide or central player, but kind of floats and adjusts well. Right now, I think he's a lot more confident, obviously, than we've ever seen him. Probably because he has a little bit more tactical clarity. For whatever reason, I'm probably going to say it's the coaching differences, that he has a little bit more of an idea of what to do and where to go. But in general, I've just been very pleased with both the runs that he's making and the decision making, because that's just kind of been a big problem that we've seen for all of our players, having very immature decision making, and I think that's just been a big difference for all of the players, and kind of maybe the difference between why we're getting points that we would not have gotten much previously.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think you see a purpose there in this game that we certainly didn't see with his role under Struber, where sometimes under Struber it felt like he was his instructions were sort of just to latch onto the ball in the final third and sort of just brute force it in, and it didn't feel like he had any sense of how to connect. I mean, this is true of all the players under Struber, of course, but it almost felt like he, and then sometimes Omir Fernandez were like the two players who were maybe given license to just like, I don't know, go figure something out. And it seems like Carmona, I have a better sense of how he can combine and be a little bit more of a dynamic player in that sort of position on the field you were explaining, the sort of front two of that midfield 4-2-2-2. And I thought that they combined well with our strike pairing that we saw to start both of these games of Morgan and Van Zer, which seems to be the strike pairing now. And it seems to be Lewis Morgan, who is just an out-and-out striker, which, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I like it. But part of me does wonder, is this really the long-term solution? Or might the club still have more of a target striker in mind and be able to have a little bit more flexibility with how Morgan has played previously? I don't know. I will say that, Van Zer does get another assist and a goal this game. And we have to say that, this is a non-volley goal by Dante Van Zer.
Pretty good goal.
Yeah, it was, as we tweeted, is unfortunately you have to admit it was actually a pretty slick
You
goal.
do have to hand it to them.
Yeah. We buried the lead at the top of the episode. Not only did O.J. Simpson die, but today, the day of recording, is Dante Van Zer's birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now he's like 40.
Yeah, I wonder if Mark Furman and he have shared notes. I don't know. Too much. But
look it up, kids.
Yeah. It was definitely a different side of him that we've seen. It's more technique than I've seen Dante Van Zer show, him running onto that ball and then sort of dragging it back and slotting it away for a corner. And it just seems like he and Morgan in different ways are playing with confidence, which I don't think we've been able to say about them up until the last couple weeks. I certainly didn't see that last season. So cautious optimism here when it comes to the top of our formation there. Anything else about the Cincinnati game to comment on? Or should we just start thinking about Chicago?
I like the way that we finished it off. I thought it was very professional.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati was still kind of putting us under siege for the last long stretch of the game, and team held up, and to kind of repeat what's kind of been said a couple times I think already on this episode, where seemed like the sort of situation where team the last few years would have bent and eventually broken. So the fact that that's not happening, at least not yet, or not with any regularity this season, is definitely encouraging.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that we went to 3 at the back at the 88th minute, fairly late. I thought we were holding up well, but part of me did wonder. I was like, oh, is it, is the potential of changing something up and having some like growing pains of adjusting to a new shape on the field worth just one extra center back? But it was no problem. It was no issue having, all three of Ayla, Reyes, and Nealis on the pitch at the same time. I think that's was that the first time we had all three of those? I don't know, but it worked out.
Maybe. I feel like we've had Dylan Nealis in the back three when we've had it. So
yeah, Dylan Nealis seems to still have the right back position on lock.
As said by Schwartz himself.
Yeah. And he said that
had a conversation with Kyle
Duncan, acknowledged. He said, all right, I understand.
Dylan's been playing great. And yes.
Which I will say, this, even just small little anecdotes like that, very different vibe as opposed to last season. I did not get the sense that
there's much democracy going on in the locker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not democracy, but it's just
a little democratic.
Being honest and communicative in a professional sense.
Right.
Which, well, depending on who you listen to, was very much in dispute in the last coaching staff. So,
well, by contrast, we had a 0-0 game at home against Chicago. This is a game that was very much defined by a first half red card to Andres Reyes, a red card that was very hard for us to even notice while in the stadium. We really had to look up a video while we were there to get any sort of indication of what happened, and only just reviewed it now. It happened during a free kick. As a soccer fan, you're used to all of these sort of skirmishes that happen every free kick, and it almost seems like the referee himself was like, yeah, okay, another one of these. He did issue a yellow card to Andres Reyes at first, cautioning him for, I don't know what the formal explanation was. Do you think, I guess I was about to say that the caution would have been for, slapping the guy in the face, but I suppose that if he had noticed that, it would have been a straight red from the get-go.
Well, that makes me think, it's just like, why is that a clear and obvious error? Like, you saw what was happening.
Yeah, it is interesting that he decided to give a yellow for what otherwise would be...
Maybe he just thought it was a thing where Reyes just bodied him too hard and just, put him on the ground that way.
Yeah.
Without any, kind of direct violence or facial contact.
He must have already been giving them warnings then ahead of time, because that would be unusual to give a yellow, for that sort of thing.
I still think it's harsh, but
yeah. Well, and then on the replay showed that Reyes did sort of flip his hand up and make contact with the guy's head, which counts as a red card. Became a straight red card, although it becomes a sort of funny edge case in the rules, or a quirk in the rules, that I suppose since it was before the ball was played, and it was violent conduct, not a foul, it was not a penalty, because it happened like around the 6-yard box as they're all lining up, or around the penalty spot. But this is just as though he just had violent conduct when like think back to when Aurelian Collin or Kaká put his hands around Aurelian Collin's face for that weird moment. It's just like that sort of thing where it's like an interstitial moment.
Sasha Kljestan getting suspended in the tunnel in Toronto.
Right. It's like the equivalent of that.
Red carded in the tunnel.
Which is sort of a weird instance. Unfortunately, it's for a player that has had difficulty staying off of the discipline sheet at his time for the Red Bulls. And, Andres Reyes was given a start here to try to continue his run in the team recently after starting on the bench at the beginning of the season. And, really an error on his part. I think this was the first time we saw him I guess him and Isla started against Cincinnati as well. But this is, him and Neela started against Cincinnati. Pardon me. This was, in fact, the first pairing that we saw them play together. And as I've said on previous episodes, when we renewed him, I think that he has a lot of potential and a lot of skills as a player. But I don't think he can really afford to keep on making these mental mistakes. Because I think it's safe to say, in my opinion, that this kind of cost the team really a opportunity to get full 3 points at home here. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being harsh, because the team did put in a decent performance otherwise. What's your assessment of the red card situation and how much of a mistake it is by Reyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think Dante Vanzer showed his frustration that, how an individual error can affect the rest of the team as he's coming off, because he was very frustrated, obviously, that he had to be subbed off. But, I mean, I think over the course of a season, a good team will learn how to deal, or will have to deal with a situation like that. No matter what, I agree that it probably cost us a chance at getting 2 points, or 2 more points. But as a team, we were able to handle it and kind of get a result. I wonder maybe if we even could have been more aggressive at trying to pursue the 3 points, even with 10 men. Kind of felt like we had the chance a lot of that time. But also, there's a bit of vulnerability you'll have to accept if you're going to try to go for that kind of result, I guess,
I think Isla and Neela started together, or Isla and Reyes started together against Columbus. That was the only other time, which is not the best track record of performances between the two of them, but very different cases here. Part of me wonders like why. I mean, because I think like to your point, like Chicago is just a bad team. Like they were especially bad in the game, and it almost felt like at times you didn't even know it was 10 versus 11 men on the field. I get that Von Zier's frustrated and heads to the tunnel after being subbed off, because they show that very clearly on TV, because I wasn't at the match.
Oh yeah, I was pointing at him going right
because he goes straight in and he's pissed. I mean, part of me wonders why, we wouldn't have maybe even just kept him on for a little bit longer just to take advantage of Chicago being so bad, us having so much possession, and still kind of like, as we saw when he was off the field, we still like made this a very like, like you wouldn't even recognize that they were only, 21 men on the field.
Well, I just wanted Von Zier. I saw a little bit of stuff online about it, but like, what Von Zier like kicked a bunch of water bottles or something?
He
or
threw a water bottle. So like the live stream of the game cuts to him heading into the tunnel, and he like slams his water bottle onto the ground as he's like heading into the tunnel.
Yeah, and when he came off like and went to the bench to get his jacket or whatever, he like kicked a bunch of bottles too.
Well, and I saw a thing too where I guess Morgan was caught cussing on camera or something. Like,
I think he said something like, "I want to fucking score."
Yeah, like I guess maybe that for Morgan is a little more encouraging. That it's just like kind of hunger and like desire to win. But I mean and like with Van Zier though. And this isn't even really to single out Von Zier. Lord knows I'm not a fan, but this isn't really to single out Von Zier as much as just saying like, I don't think, and I think this harkens back to just some comments that you heard a lot from, not just Struber, from players themselves sometimes over the last few years, where a little bit of like, kind of shading teammates and, kind of throwing teammates under the bus sometimes and showing up teammates like, with emotional, kind of actions like that, where it's just kind of like, I don't know. I would like to see the team showing a little more unity, a little more composure towards stuff like that. I mean, of course, you're going to be, any team's going to be upset when a player makes a mistake, and there's ways of, kind of disciplining and having group managing of that sort of thing. But I think, throwing a fit in the stadium in front of the fans is, not the best way to handle it. And it's not, like I said, not to single out Van Zier in particular. I think it's something that you've seen, from time to time throughout the squad in the last few years. That I think is something that needs to be rooted out if this team's going to get back to the top again.
I do feel like the consensus amongst like normie, social media enjoyers like on Instagram were like justifying and supporting Van Zier and like the way he handled it.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, that stuff's always a crowd pleaser.
Which is just
the fuck, he's angry at the bonehead teammate. Like, good for him. Like, but in reality, like that can be kind of corrosive to team ethic and all that.
I think Instagram, like being normie, might be over glorifying the comment section, because it's maybe one of the most depraved like public forums you could be in. But I kind of disagree with you in that, I'm of the opinion that attackers are always a little prissy and should have a little bit of an attitude problem and like are kind of like emotionally unbalanced and should be that way in order for them to be like the best attackers.
Brian Clough punching his defenders because
right, exactly.
He had to score so much.
But like I think that like I think there is a relationship to be built where you can manage that emotion and have it be, maybe released in a more constructive way. But like you're saying, to Dante Van Zier himself is like, he's always kind of demonstrated a little bit of like, knowing the right way to be. And this is kind of like, maybe it's not totally professional, but that is kind of like the hunger I want him to have to be a better player, like that, to be able to get those minutes and like be angry about stuff like that. And if he's, and like, he shouldn't be as public about it. And I think maybe like it's a little bit too much of a display. Like I didn't
even mean for it to become a long sidebar.
Right,
this.
yeah.
I mean, it was just kind of my take on that. Since it became a little bit of a hot button.
Yeah, but like I think attackers should always be a little bit of a drama queen, though. Behind closed doors.
I think that like the reason I even brought it up was more like along the lines of Carmona ended up having a quite a good game, all things considered. But
yeah, this is like the best game I've seen Carmona play.
Yeah, but I think like at that point in time, very very early in the game, still like there's some part of me who even thinks like maybe we keep Von Zier in and we take Carmona off, who like otherwise has been like okay all season, and like allow the opportunity to score maybe a goal and then push put a much more defensive like minded setup in place for the second half of the game.
Yeah, and I think that's like pretty wise to try to take advantage of those moments, because other teams usually are caught off guard if you just keep going at after you get a red card or two, like I think Tottenham did last year at one point, but they just kept going, and then they just ended up really poorly, and they just never put in a defender. But
yeah,
like I don't think like my perhaps biggest issue with Schwartz so far has been that he's very pragmatic, perhaps a little too much. I think we've noticed this on like maybe some away trips that we kind of shore up pretty early. We like to like kind of keep at bay, and then that gives us opportunities to open up maybe later in games. Maybe this is a symptom of him being a kind of like relegation manager, like playing the safe route is maybe the best way to go about
but
things.
It must be said the team's been pretty good at it so far.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So, I think
it's just something that I'm potentially flagging is like, oh, if we don't get maybe like beyond a certain level of confidence and aggression, maybe like that's not enough.
I mean, I will say that the team and in general for this game, the team did respond maturely. And I think that they responded maturely for the most part in Cincinnati to having like a big crowd, on top of them, and then having Miazga being a hothead. Like so far this season, that I have a good feeling about like the team's sort of management, especially considering how much I was complaining about the sort of rah atmosphere that Lesane seemed to be fostering in the short amount of time he had to try to get something going. As I said a couple months ago, I thought that like I understood why Lesane seemed to go with that strategy, but it bubbled over a little bit and I got a little tired of it. This season feels very different on that front. I think this game was an example of that, where the team stayed composed. And that suggests to me that maybe, when there are situations where like a player shows frustration, that maybe the conversations that they're having in the locker room seem to be, competently managed and
constructive.
Yeah, more constructive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll as far as pragmatic, and I mean, I'll like kind of what I said earlier, as far as just seeing out the game in Cincinnati too, I'll take pragmatic as far as the way the results have come out this season. I think, as far as like the Chicago game, I don't think going down a man is when you really try and reinvent the wheel in any respect. I mean, of course you want to try and get a result at home, especially against a bad team. And Chicago was bad. But yeah, I don't think you really have any choice but to go with pragmatism in a situation like that. But that being said, yeah, Chicago was rough. They didn't really offer any threat. They had a few moments here and there where they had pretty conventional, kind of like get the ball wide and try and find somebody on the back post, kind of plays that create a little bit of danger. But for the most part, just as far as just, kind of patterns and everything, they were just bad. Looked like a Frank Kloppus team, even though I thought he was 2 decades older than he actually is last week. But still not really doing anything too sophisticated coaching wise, and it looked like it.
On that note, the manager that I was trying to think of last episode, who's secretly British, is Frank Yallop.
That's right.
Yeah. Also former Chicago manager,
right.
Who's probably also younger than I think he is.
Yeah, I think Frank Yallop's Chicago team might have looked a little more fluent than this one did the other night. But at the same time, always kind of, a tough situation, especially the way Red Bulls play, or the Red Bull system is that having a man down and having a number disadvantage is a big problem in a lot of respects, even more than it might be for teams that play a different way that relies more on the ball. So
it's hard to overload space when you don't have the same amount of people.
An extra man. So hard to really quibble with the result, and can be said in a lot of ways that avoiding a loss when you're down to 10 men for that long is a fairly decent result. So at the same time, still kind of in wait and see mode. Maybe as far as like kind of what I said earlier in the episode, as far as we've had some good games against big teams or teams that were maybe feeling a little confident coming into it or were favored, but then against some of the maybe sleepier teams like Chicago, and it was Houston was the rough result earlier in the year.
We beat Houston.
It was
Columbus?
The very first, Columbus was the loss in the very first game of the season where we drew. I'll look it up for you, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, that
Nashville.
Right, that kind of a signature result. I think we've kind of had this theme in a few recent episodes as far as kind of starting to get the results. Get the most winnable results. Win the games you're supposed to win is going to be a big litmus test of where this team is, because kind of the signature performances, signature results so far this season have been kind of surprises against big teams.
Yeah.
And I think for this team to show that it's sort of holistically a contender, it's going to have to start putting together more consistent performances against some of the smaller teams and some of the easier games, the trap games in the parlance of the times.
Yeah.
That's really the difference between like an upper mid-table team and like a top table team,
right,
is being able to beat the games you're supposed to win, right? Not just the difficult ones. But
we are second in the table right now in the Eastern Conference. The Western Conference, who knows? But and we have a game in hand on Miami, who are the only team ahead of us, and Miami
are still first.
Miami is only ahead of us by one goal differential.
All the games they're losing are in the freaking International Champions Cup or whatever. Or the freaking Mobile Mini Sun Cup. All these different tournaments that they're just randomly entering.
Yeah,
Miami
although they have dropped points against Colorado and NYCFC recently too, so they're. And they lost to Montreal too. So Miami has had some stumbles already. But I think just more broadly on that theme of like feeling how we feel about the season, how we feel about Schwartz, I'm personally am at the point where I'm like cautiously ready to be like, all right, I feel good about the state of this team. I think showing a lot of composure in Cincinnati, and then still keeping it together and having a very solid chance at winning this game against Chicago, even with the man down, has impressed me. We haven't even mentioned that we do have some pretty decent chances here. Lewis Morgan almost had a repeat of his sort of goal against Miami in some ways, where he goes and chases down a ball and gets off a pretty solid shot. It would have been a pretty remarkable angle to score from, but forces a save. And then of course we have the double hitting of the post in stoppage time, a pretty good taken curler by Manuel, and then the rebound from Frankie that we're unlucky to not go in from a tight angle. The fact that we are even at a position where we can say we were unlucky to get 3 points there is good, but globally it does have me thinking, what in terms of like restoring confidence in the club. There's one piece that I think is in the back of my mind, and Cork, you tweeted this when talking about Struber being fired from Salzburg, which is that, the one thing that's still sort of an elephant in the room is that this has been a really good season so far for a lot of the players that Struber did not have trust in, a lot of the players that Thelwell acquired for the Red Bulls, not Jochen Schneider, and a lot of the people who are in charge of the club are still the people who were happy to let Struber stay here as a holding pen for months while a racism scandal blew up, and he handled it very poorly. And then after they fired him, they had a celebratory dinner and posted it online together. Which is to say that, yes, I think the manager is very influential, if the most influential part of a football club, and that we seem to have hired a decent one, and that's gone a long way already. But there's still room in terms of improving the more fundamental health of the club that I could get more reassured by. And hopefully that is something that the club would improve on throughout the rest of this year, throughout the next year. Maybe Julian de Guzman will turn out to be a club builder in an incredible way, just like I wasn't expecting Sandro Schwarz, relegated manager for Hertha Berlin, to do a decent job so far. We'll see. I don't know.
There is one more, I think, cultural thing. I forgot to bring this up in our pre-production meeting, but there was a survey going out for season ticket holders about kind of how they want to maybe renovate the stadium for new luxury sections. We'll get our own Hudson Whiskey Club maybe at RPA. Seems to be
our own DraftKings
restaurant
lounge or whatever the hell they're called. They had one in DC. That's the only stadium where I've seen like a full on, I guess, like casino in. But
now that I was there before the game and saw the whole, hype up thing with the lights, and now that I've been to a Mets game this year, I can say that I realize how much of the new pre-game production is just like straight up copying the Mets, which is sort of wild. But I'll take some of it, because it just meant that they've basically just taken the whole 7 train graphic thing that they do before Mets games and just like made it the PATH train instead, which like, hey, I it's better than like emphasizing the schools in Orange County or whatever. Or wherever, Essex County, which if based on their other stuff they've been pushing, I would have expected the vibe to be more like that.
Dude, I just want to give a shout out, not to give too much credit to the children of Essex County, but
the halftime game?
Just as a fun little aside, because we don't have enough fun on this show these days. The freaking
I hope the Academy director was watching that
youth,
game.
Yeah, the youth. I don't know if this was an actual like Red Bull Academy team or teams that were playing in this game, but
These 8 years old.
The game that was on the south half during halftime, they were real. They first caught my eye because they looked real little, but that was like the most well-played, sophisticated game I've ever seen in like the halftime Pee Wee shows. It was
incredible finishing,
great entertainment
from difficult angles the entire match.
Yeah, every kid had personality on the ball. It was great to watch.
They even had like visual branding identities at that point. There was like one kid with like a long hair.
They all
style.
had different haircuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice that we haven't copied from the Mets is after a game, our lights don't spell out W in them.
Yeah, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of the LED lights. I feel like it's not a good mix for my astigmatism. This is just the part of the show where we bemoan how old we are now. But yeah, it is bright. Also at Citi Field, the W thing is sort of like, that's sort of a Cubs thing, So like, it just feels like we're,
2 layers of copying.
Yeah. Also, the Cubs are not like a cool franchise to copy. It's not really who I look forward to. But I'm sure in 2028, Red Bull Arena will have lights in W formation, ready to go. Also, as I've explained on previous episodes, I just think lights should take a long time to turn on. I think that's just how it should work.
All lights should be based off of some sodium ion.
Yeah, it was the only thing keeping the oceans from being extremely hot, and then we got rid of all of the sodium and sulfur, and now it's all screwed up.
I assume these like LED shows are more, expensive to the, energy grid and environment than, like a fucking Bitcoin farm or whatever. So
I guess actually the one
that
thing,
part of it gives me anxiety too.
So that's the one thing they're good about, I guess.
Just don't spend that much energy.
For real? Like LEDs just don't use much energy?
Yeah.
That's
Unfortunately.
extremely efficient, like maybe revolutionary technology.
God, fucking you know how much I hate efficient technology and the onslaught of it. God damn
The problem with them actually is that they're just too blue, I think.
I think that is it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's not really an equivalent to this at RBA, but at Citi Field, they've changed the fucking scoreboard again. They, built the world's largest scoreboard and can never work, and they change it every 3 series. But they have that
Samsung.
They have that anachronistic thing. I forget what the term for it is though, but like they have it as though it's the light bulbs that light up for the number of outs. It doesn't say 2 outs. It just says outs and it has the 2 circles that fill in. Even though that's representing 2 light bulbs turning on, but it's not light bulbs anymore. It's just
put the number.
Yeah, just put the number. And then just on that note, at RBA, kudos to finding the world's smallest font for putting
the announcements,
and also just like the random like micro celebrities that get put on screen.
Oh, the lower thirds.
Yeah, it's like so tiny. I maybe I don't want to read it. That's fine.
Maybe it's just AI like gibberish font.
Yeah, but
for all we know,
they're trying to like. And I will say this, I actually, the crowd on Saturday, good crowd. People were like clapping. It was a good soccer crowd. People knew what was up.
Pretty full.
Yeah, pretty full.
Now that they're compressing people with tarps.
I mean, it does seem to work, compared. Like the tarp move, maybe just like it was good to rip the Band-Aid and do that.
Right.
Good crowd. But they keep on trying to do this thing where they're like splicing in, like during a throw in or something, like cutting away to some person who has their name in the world's tiniest font. And I don't know if I'm supposed to know who they are, but the thought has occurred to me that like maybe they actually just aren't micro celebrities. Maybe it just actually is random people.
Right. It's just like senior project manager at like Ashurion.
Members Plus auction winner.
Yeah, no, like maybe it is actually just a club perk, because that'll just be like personality or like radio personality. I'm like, okay, sure. Maybe we could just like spend $20 extra and then they'll send someone to our seat to like just have us wave at the camera for 15 seconds while someone is down hurt.
I'm trying to get picked for the New Jersey lottery activation that they're doing now, where you win a minimum of $70,000.
Do you have to win some kind of raffle to get there in the first place?
I'm gonna
Did you have to win some kind
members
of
plus
that was like crazy.
I would say the number
that's like winning 7 different America's Funniest Home Video.
That's
episodes.
like winning a year's MLS contract.
Yeah.
It used to be. Yeah, what happened to like the thing where they gave the entire row just the tickets? Do they still do that? I don't know.
No,
I think this was like
I think they
that was just like an addendum
maybe.
to this whole spin the wheel thing.
New Jersey lottery, doing
when
business.
they spun the wheel though, is it just me? I was walking around the stadium, so it was kind of hard to see, but it looked like it landed exactly on the line between
you kind of
like 300,000 and
for
75,000.
Well, I think there's like a little.
It spun for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, the dude like put some juice on the spin, but there's like a little pointer thing that like clicks if you get past the.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all or nothing.
It's like a mechanism, but
I will say that
if you're listening, front office, pick all of us. I think
they're not gonna pick us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Just like we could split one spin, right?
I don't think we're gonna be on top of the list.
No, I think if there were a way to lose money, maybe. Sure. But if I'll volunteer if they have a version where like you lose money, but you don't actually lose money. It'll just like
Jeopardy
it'll
money?
be a bit, that we've lost money. I'll volunteer for them to do that. They can make fun of me and do that.
Like we'll donate $70,000 to like a charity or something.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we're playing at the home of Price is Right. Beautiful
LAFC.
Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, it feels like another match week where we're saying, oh, we're playing a good club away from home, just like Cincinnati. But lo and behold, we are. It is away in California.
Yeah, people are saying we have the hardest schedule, right?
Based on the 3 weeks of results.
Right. Well, yeah. But
I mean, I guess how many Western Conference
the
games
3
do we
weeks of
even
results
have?
where every single team in the league has 11 points.
But also, it's like every team, like there's only so many matches that are different for each team.
Right.
Like we only have a handful of games where we get a random selection of Western Conference opponents. Other than that, everything is balanced. But
this is one of them.
Right. This is one of them. We're way at LAFC.
I forgot what the official cliche is, but I mean, just as far as this goes for kind of all seasons, I'm in this mode, not just when I'm a little hesitant to crown the team back. But the standings don't exist until, halfway through the season, is kind of my mantra. And especially stats like that, where it's oh, they're doing well against teams with winning records. The sample sizes don't matter at that point. It's a body of work sort of game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And
Schwartz himself agreed with me.
Yeah.
When I don't think we've mentioned that since on the Cincinnati game where the team was in first place, and Schwartz himself said, yeah, we're in first place and it's great and everything, but that doesn't mean anything at this point. It is April. The whole point of the season is to play well over the whole season, not just get off to a good start. This team's had good starts in recent years too, and haven't seen them through. So, still a lot of soccer to be played.
I mean, for that point, we have a better record than LAFC currently. We have 4 more points through 8 matches. But again,
right, 7 games in.
Yeah, 8 games in. Yeah,
which is also 20% of the season, I guess, too, right? If you think about it. And it's enough where you can make an assessment of where the teams kind of are.
Well,
very provisionally, but yeah. But yeah, I think for me, expectation is still for a point. I guess this is a question when it comes to the lineup. Our center back pairing is decided for Schwartz. It will be Isla and Nealis at the back. I fully expect Dylan Nealis to be the right back and Tolkien to play on the left.
Whatever illness Sean Nealis was dealing with didn't seem to affect him that much.
No, and Stroud's injury is still not disclosed at the time of recording. We haven't really discussed it yet, but it doesn't look good. It was the kind of thing where he got up immediately and then immediately signaled. It seemed like, based on the reaction, it seems similar to what people say about ACLs, which is sometimes you can make one movement, no problem, but as soon as you make a twist or something, that's when it hits you. Again, we have no idea what it is at this point, but it looked fairly serious at the game. So I think it's safe to assume that Stroud will not be available at least for this Saturday. So we're going to see an Edelman, Amaya pairing likely again.
Even the grade 1 sprain is a month.
Yeah. And however, compared to the last time we saw it in my Edelman pairing, we have seen Wiki Carmona sort of as a proof of concept, potentially pairing with Forsberg. I'm going to keep an eye on Forsberg because, frankly, against Chicago, he didn't look his sharpest. I don't know if I thought against Cincinnati he looked okay. That's all to say, if he has another meh results on Saturday, might catch my attention as a bit of a pattern.
Yeah.
But until then, I won't call it a pattern, but I've got my eye on it.
He's allegedly coming back from an injury. So.
Yeah, you're allowed to have mediocre spells of play. But, I've just got my eye on it. I think he wasn't a liability on Saturday either, but it could be an opportunity for him to really win a game for us. We've had games where Lewis Morgan has sort of won the game for us. We've had games where Frankie Amaya, I feel has arguably won the game for us. It'd be nice for Forsberg to really put his stamp on a game and maybe win a game or get a result for us. Saturday could be such an opportunity if he's trying to fill the role of a big personality and figure in the history of this
in
club.
Hollywood.
Yeah. You're expecting a point? Is it crazy to dream of 3?
Who even is on LAFC now? They still have Bale, right?
They have Hugo Lloris.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Bale is on the how do you pronounce this? I've only read it. Is it the LIV tour? Is it the Live tour?
Oh, he's on the Live tour?
I don't know. I actually don't know if I was joking, but maybe he actually is.
Okay, so Live is actually...
We're not going to talk about Live the whole time.
I know. I'm just going to give you a brief thing so you know how to pronounce it. The LIV is actually Roman numerals because they play that many holes.
Okay.
So it's the 54 tour?
That's surprisingly clever.
But you can call it Live, I guess. Well, that's I think the double entendre or whatever for the tour.
I'm enjoy that I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised.
I like that this took me back.
I'm glad at how wrong I was actually there. That's a little bit of whimsy there. Okay, I'm glad I'm still out of the loop on something that I see posted online. But yeah, Gareth Bale, I'm sure once he gets back from the 54 tour, he'll be back. But yeah, no one knows what goes on there anymore.
Apparently, they all suck at golf now because they all did not make the cut at the Masters. So
all the LAFC players?
All the LAFC players did not make the cut at the Masters.
Oh, they're not all banned. Oh, here's a name. Aaron Long. That's a name.
Oh, he's still there.
Some of the pretty old Red Bulls fans will remember at this point.
Aaron Long, only 31 years old. A good age, I hear.
An entire year and a half
that
he's been gone from this club.
Could have been playing.
Feels like yesterday, doesn't it? It's like
could have been playing this very match for us.
Ilie Sanchez as well. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I'm looking at this again, especially after getting a result in Cincinnati. I'm relatively cautiously optimistic that I'm not really scared of any other team. I don't feel delusional going into this, hoping for 3 points here. I think if we don't get it, I'm not going to be upset, but I think I will be hoping for it. I will say the one thing that you can point to that I'm buying in is that I actually bought MLS Season Pass, and I feel gross about it.
I was going to say, I think we've already played the one team that scares me the most, which is Columbus, pretty much, I think. I think every other game should be kind of looked at as pretty winnable in terms of matchup. Or I don't really see anyone being able to outpass us with such kind of coached precision.
It almost does feel cathartic that we've had sort of the worst case scenario already happen to us.
Maybe.
Where it's we already got spanked once. We know what it feels like. It feels like the team is playing maybe with a little bit more freedom, having already experienced that.
There's no reason to not think we'll win every game, but the game always answers your questions. So
thanks, Norm.
Not Buck.
Oh, sorry.
You're mistaking our surrogate fathers.
I tried.
Yeah.
Till then.
It's Alex!